If you are a serious personal injury lawyer, and especially if you're in litigation and you try cases, you don't sleep. You just don't sleep well. Every night, you're waking up, remembering something, thinking about something. The mind never shuts off because you're always thinking of what the theme of the case is, analogies. It's great to talk to other people because you ask them, like, what do you think about these facts? Because that's your jury. Yeah. What I love is that a jury knows if someone's being authentic. Yeah. They know if someone's being genuine. Living your life with integrity and with values, no matter what, it has to be who you are.
Lindsey, we're here at the table.
Yes.
I'm kind of putting you on the spot. I want this to be very clear for anybody that's watching this video is that you have not been prepared with these questions. There's a reason why, is because I want this to be very organic, conversational, and where you have to just come up with these answers off the top of your head. So I'm not going to ask you for like legal opinions on this or anything where like you're going to get like lawsuit or anything at all. This is just people getting to know you as a lawyer and common folks like me and the people behind the camera. The questions that we like to ask lawyers that we don't ever get to really ask because, you know, we never get to sit down with you and ask you these questions. So
right.
That sound good?
Absolutely.
All right, cool. These questions are going to range anywhere from, you know, entertaining, funny, annoying, and also a little bit of inspiration at the end here. So I'll go ahead and get started. So I want you to be honest with me at this one. So McDonald's case. Yeah. Ambulance chaser. Insurance premiums go up because of you. Yes. So you get these comments when, and do you,
I either get comments like that, like you know, kind of like cracking a joke, you know, and if you can't make fun of yourself, you know, you just take life too seriously. So I'm used to it. I actually think it's kind of funny. But on the other hand, you also get a lot of questions. Like if somebody recently had a wreck,
what's the question?
Or, I just got into a car wreck and I'm not that injured, but do you think this was a fair price for my car? You know, stuff like that. Or, you know, or they'll tell like, you know, their version of like how they were wronged. Like, I got into a wreck and it was my fault. And this other person says they were injured. I know they weren't injured and it was all BS, you know. And so they may be a little defensive. Yep. And I just, you know, listen. But and then others may actually go, you know, to the extreme of like very traumatic, you know, injury stories. But that can always be the case. But if it's a dinner party, hopefully people are keeping it light.
Have you ever like gotten a case just showing up somewhere and just, you know, people talking, you're like, oh dang, you actually might have something serious here. Let's talk.
Oh, I that happens all the time.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
All the time.
Yeah. Awesome. Another question for you is, you know, there's all these TV shows like Better Call Saul, Suits, The Law and Orders, right? Mm-hmm. What's something that those shows get absolutely wrong about?
Everything. Everything's always wrong. In fact, the only thing that maybe was a little bit close was Landman. And yeah, I do think that was a little bit more in line with kind of like just the fact that they had some injury claims. They talked about insurance. Now, there were also a lot of like her in Landman, for example, the young female attorneys, her way of negotiating and bolstering was, you know, I'm going to come in here and tell you how it is. And, you know, that's just not how it works usually, you know. Does it make you cringe when you watch some of these or hear about these shows and see the clips and everything? If it's strictly, I like Landman because it has to do with oil and gas. Yeah. But if it's strictly a law show, I really can't watch it. So, like a Suits or anything. Oh, no. Never could get into Suits, never could get into Law and Order, anything that, except I would say the other one that is, I take it back. Yeah, there is one other show that's very accurate. The Lincoln Lawyer. Oh, yeah. You mentioned that a couple times. That is criminal law, though. So it's appealing to me only because it's a different area of law that I don't experience. But I have talked to other criminal lawyers, too. That is probably the closest law show that is close to the real deal. Because the premise there is like he works out of the car, basically. Like, that's his office, right? Like, yes. It's kind of like his headquarters is the Lincoln. Yes. So he's well, besides that, like his opening and his closing, you know, that was and then just kind of what aspects of the law that he's trying to prove and ethically what he can and can't do. Cool. And then just kind of the practice of criminal law, you know, because it's a lot more coming and going. You have to make a lot of court appearances. Yep. You got to go to the jail. You got to go on site. You know, you got to go investigate. And so you really are doing kind of the boots on the ground kind of work. You know, you're the Army soldier. Yeah. And then there was a movie I saw recently called I Am Sam. And I don't know if you saw that. Yeah, it's an old movie. That's Sean very Penn. Old. Yeah, so Sean Dakota Fanning, which was like 6 or 7. Yes. Yeah. And then you have Michelle Pfeiffer. That's right. Yeah. And, you know, she's the divorce attorney, family law attorney. Yep. And she takes the case pro bono. She's trying to get custody for Sam, who's mentally challenged. of this young girl. And I would say just showing the stress of her work and the clients, and then trying to manage being a mom because she has one child and then a family, and then her preparation for the witnesses, getting him and others ready for that, I could really relate to.
Wow.
So
very rarely does Hollywood get it right in terms of portraying what the life of a lawyer looks like.
Right. I would say there was one show. Who was that? I'll have to think of it when they had like these epic closing statements.
Yeah.
And none of that would be allowed, but it was just such good writing. I could actually watch it.
But it always seems so theatrical and over the top and ridiculous. And, I mean, my experience, I've sat in a jury duty for a few days and it was awesome. I loved it. It was a very dumb case and boring, but like, I just loved being in the room and seeing the process. It was insurance. It was like something with like a toilet the insurance company didn't want to cover it. And so then escalate, took it to court.
So it was a coverage issue?
Yeah. For me, it was like, it was dumb, but it was really cool to see how it all worked and like who talks when and like kind of like the pageantry of it and the formality of it all. So I was very fascinated by it, but then I did see too, it was so different from the movies.
Did you get to go on the panel?
Yeah.
Like, were you selected as a juror?
I was there for 3 days. It was awesome.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
I loved it.
So you saw what the jury selection process, which is word
and the questions, and it was hilarious because like there was a guy who there was like, I hate insurance companies, F them, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, you're out, like, and then someone else is like, yeah, like my wife got, my sister got this thing that happened 3 years ago in the bathroom, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, he's out. And then, so it was the questions that the lawyers got to ask. It was kind of like sitting in on like the NFL draft or something like that, like where they interview the players before they draft them.
Right.
It was so cool because you got to see like the strategies behind what questions they were asking and who they would point out to ask questions to. Because there was definitely, I saw the patterns and the strategies that they were all going for. And they explained that all to us beforehand, but it was really fascinating seeing it all happen in person. It would have been really cool if it would have been a much more interesting case for sure. Did
they explain to you what bias is? When they did the voir dire, did either of the attorneys tell you what a bias is? Like, so when you were answering your question?
I don't remember them necessarily explaining it to us, but I remember they said like, we're going to ask you questions about, if you've been involved with like insurance claims, if you've lost an insurance claim, how recently, and, depending on your answer, you're going to get picked or kicked out, basically.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. It was really cool. I was fascinated by it. I think a lot of people in the jury room were ready to leave.
Right.
But I was like, this is awesome.
Well, I just recently saw a colleague pick a jury in Dallas. And it was the first time I saw a jury get popped, which means...
What does that mean?
Basically, we had, about 200 people. And after both sides went, they realized there was not enough people of that pool that were not biased on one side or the other. So there were, so all of them were, or not enough of them, too many of them, I should say, were struck for cause. So leaving not enough.
Oh, so there just weren't enough people to pick.
Yes, because
not neutral people.
Right, because everybody raised their hand with certain questions that exposed their bias.
Yeah,
which is
it's like we all hate the color blue, and it's like, well, we need people that like blue. Yeah.
So it's funny because on the plaintiff's side, the attorney was like, "All right, raise your." I think his question that really eliminated a lot of the jurors was, "Would any of y'all hold me to a higher standard of care than preponderance of an evidence?" That's our standard. In civil, it's preponderance of an evidence. When in criminal, it's beyond a reasonable doubt, right? So we just have to prove a featherweight more and to prevail. In criminal, you have to be 99%.
Right there,
right there. So he was saying, are you going to hold me to a standard above preponderance of an evidence, maybe closer to beyond a reasonable doubt, if I ask for a verdict of $300 million.
Whoa.
And I have presented damages that would justify that. And I think maybe half of them were like, I would definitely give you a verdict, but that much, I don't think that's too much, right?
So he's like, if I ask for this, are you going to hold me to a much higher standard?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Right.
Wow.
And then on the defense side, once they learned that it was a big company, they were very unforgiving. And especially knowing that it was a child that was injured.
Oh, that makes
because
it even worse.
They were like, we can't be, we're not going to be fair. If you're a big company and the child was injured.
We're going at you.
Yeah, there's no mercy.
Oh my gosh, the gloves are coming off.
So I didn't get to see round 2, but they popped 2 panels.
Wow.
And so they had to go back weeks later for the second round, pop that one, and then ultimately I think it's settled. But
But all this to say, like Hollywood and the media definitely overplay how dramatic and how tense it gets on a day-to-day. But we're talking like the case that you talked about, $300 million. It seems pretty big, and it's not every day. And I imagine the everyday occurrences is going back and forth, and it's not really as accurate in Hollywood as it normally is how you see it. Is that correct?
I mean, a lot of the legal shows I don't watch just because that's not how it works. Like, it's not how the law practice works. Yeah. It's not how it plays out. They can't be doing certain things, but they make it seem like you can.
Yeah.
Like James Spader. Do you know him?
Of course. That actor? Yeah.
What show was he in?
Boston Legal.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So I loved that show. Cool. I could watch that all the time.
He's just a great actor too. Yeah.
I mean, the writing was just superior. I mean, and I would say that was close to what it would be like. However, in closing argument, you aren't allowed to elaborate and say a lot of this stuff. Like, you can make argument, but certain argument you can't.
I feel like everyone thinks like everyone gets like the, if the glove doesn't fit, you must acquit line happens in every case. And it just seems like that's not
so
rare.
You can't say as much as they were saying, but the writing was so great. It was entertaining. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Well, entertainment. Yeah, that's what it should all be seen as. Another question I have for you now, speaking of being in the courtroom, have you ever heard the other side? And you can say as much or as little as you need to say, but have you ever heard something from the other side that was so preposterous you had to like hold in a laugh or hold in a reaction, because then, it kind of just gives away what your reaction is going to be? Have you ever been in that situation where you're just like, that's ridiculous, I'm just going to keep a straight face? Or like, you couldn't laugh, you couldn't like make a reaction.
Okay, well, something recent, like, okay, what'll happen in a deposition is we'll ask the insured, like, did your insurance company show you any of the demands we sent to settle this case? And they'll just kind of look at, their attorney that's supposed to represent them. Like, do I answer this? Do I not? Because what the heck is he talking about? Because they never do. So the insurance company is always supposed to present any kind of settlement offer to their insured, the policyholder.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, and so many times defendants get sued only because their insurance company is basically saying, yeah, we're not going to settle this. So we're going to put you, the policyholder, through a deposition, through litigation, through all of these.
We're going to like sacrifice you.
Yeah. And they don't even realize that, hey, I could have made my insurance company pay.
Wow.
And most of them want the insurance company to pay. They're like, dude, I don't care. Just pay. And the insurance company is like, no, we're here to protect you. No, they're here to protect themselves. So do you say in depositions, as you mentioned, are there those moments happen often where like deer in the headlights, oh my gosh, like what do I say? Oh, that's like my favorite question. Yeah, because every day, and it really pisses off the attorney, and he's like, don't answer, strike. We'll talk about that later. Can we have a break real quick? Right. And they try to, disrupt it. But so that's a favorite. Also, I'd say usually like just talking to, I know when defense attorneys say like, oh, they're not that injured, oh, they're not. I mean, they have no clue what they're talking about, and then really, when you actually see the MRI, you know what the injuries are. The person had surgery. They're going to go have a surgery when they're not injured. Who's going to do a surgery on someone who's not injured? Who doesn't need a surgery? So, but other than that, and nothing else kind of like comes to mind.
Yeah, but it seems like you have a greatest hit. Like, you love asking that question because it kind of opens the floor up. Mm-hmm. I know you mentioned about the insurance companies that they like to kind of put the sacrificial lamb out there on the open for you to attack, it seems like. But and you don't have to talk about insurance companies or even like trucking companies, but I guess we can pick one of those as the question comes up of, what's something shady that these companies do that us common people don't realize they do until we're like in a case where you're representing me and I discover, wow, like, these insurance companies, like, they are crazy. Or like this trucking company, that is nuts that they do this.
You as a victim, like you on the opposite side, or you as your own insurance company, like.
Let's do that. I think more like everyday common insurance companies, like.
But meaning like if you were not at fault for a wreck.
Yeah.
And okay, like what they'll do.
Something happens to me, I get in an accident, blah, blah, blah.
So here's what's interesting. They are literally, we have switch hitters. We have folks who were trained, worked at insurance companies for decades, who now work at our firm. And so we've known this and we've already known this anyway. They are trained to reach out, be pleasant, have a sweet voice,
build a relationship,
show care and concern to try to get your guard down and try to get you to start revealing information that perhaps you shouldn't. And they'll try to capture something. Like they may even make you think that they're only here to talk to you about property damage. They're recording the call with your permission. And they're also, oh, how are you feeling today? Are you okay? Oh, you're doing good. Oh, were you injured from this wreck, or not that bad? And they'll actually fill in information for you to get you to commit. I'll say probably the worst thing I've seen, actually. Let me take this back. That's just the normal. Okay, pretty much every adjuster is going to do that in every case.
Well, I think about it right now. Like when you call any of these companies, that's what they say. Oh, calls being recorded for for quality assurance.
Right.
And that too. But it's also, they're recording the conversations that they know what you said, so that they can use it against you if they have to.
It's kind of like when if you committed a crime and got arrested. What did they say? Whatever you say can and will be used against you. Yeah. They should have to say that when they call you.
Like a disclaimer, at least,
as
like a warning.
Because literally everything you say, they will be used against you. It was kind of funny because we just had, just a property damage claim at our house, a water burst, water pipe. And we had some remediation people show up, and my husband's just jabbing along, and I'm just like, cut, no, like, please don't. And he's like, what, and I'm like, you don't realize, so you don't realize what you're disclosing and what information and how important it is for them to then devalue your case and impact you and the value of your case. There's that. But I would say probably the seediest thing they're doing these days, they will influence someone to settle their case, and immediately, especially, this is the worst part, is it's usually the cases that are really serious and they know it's going to be a policy limits case, or what we'd say like a very expensive case for the insurance company. They will try to reach out to the person as fast as they can and offer them like $1,000, $500. I've seen, $1,500, $2,000.
What are those cases actually
and
worth?
And just say, they're worth the limits. They know it. They know they know the case is worth $50,000, $30,000. With representation, they'll get the limits. But they're like, oh, let me give this a try. And then they'll even send them the check. And when the person deposits the check, without even them signing a release, and they'll say, oh, they actually settled their case. And the person's like, I didn't know I settled my case. I thought you were just giving me some like compensation.
Just somebody to start this process, right? Like a check to just at least start,
they don't fully understand
that's a settlement check. Once you deposit it,
it's over, or they maybe, sent them a DocuSign and they're like, just sign here and we'll actually direct deposit it into your account right now.
Can a client come to you afterwards? After the fact, is that hard for you to fight?
It's difficult. It just depends on the facts, because it's, offer acceptance, it's contract law. Yeah. We have succeeded in overcoming that because, it just depends.
But I imagine it's hard.
It can be. Yeah. They will take advantage, especially of those that English is their second language. Yeah, so a lot of them are Hispanic, even though the adjuster is speaking Spanish, but they just don't know the laws necessarily as well, their rights as well. They might even be fearful if they're not legal, and just take the money in case, like, oh, what if I get in trouble? You know.
So as a first generation fluent Spanish speaker, I need to lean in on my fluent Spanish when if this ever happens to me. Right. I had no idea, no sabía.
Yeah. Right? Exactly. Yo no sé, por favor, exactly. Yo no sé. Yeah.
No hablo inglés.
Yeah, eso sí que es. I'm just kidding.
No, but that's it's fascinating. I think in the experience that you've had working with, at this point, thousands of clients, hundreds of cases, where you've seen the shadiness. And let me turn this into now the clients that you worked on, the case that you worked with. Have you had anything recently that has kept you up at night? Have you had anything recently over the past year or two that it was just a hard one to deal with and handle because of the, I guess, the emotional toll, or just the complexity of the case, or just the sheer size and impact that this case had? Has that happened to you in the past couple of years?
If you are a serious personal injury lawyer, and especially if you're in litigation and you try cases, you don't sleep. You just don't sleep well. So pretty much every night you're waking up, remembering something, thinking about something. The mind never shuts off. So,
do you have ideas for how you're going out of case. Yeah, 4 a.m. You're like, I got to write it down.
Oh, absolutely. Because you're always thinking of kind of what the theme of the case is, analogies, and really like it's great to talk to other people because you ask them like, what do you think about these facts? Because that's your jury, you know. Right. And then my husband is really talented with analogies, and he can, you know, make analogies using visual images and simplify things. And so I utilize his kind of creative visual mind a lot.
He's a springboard for you, it seems like.
Yes, absolutely. So I collaborate with ideas there. But yeah, I mean, there's the creative side of law that's really fascinating and fun and artistic. And it's how to tell a story, basically. Yeah. You are a storyteller. You're a storyteller to the adjuster. You're a storyteller to a jury. And that's how the best storytellers win, right, so to speak. You know, so if you could think of, you know, just being able to be dynamic and charismatic, but you also want to be truthful and honest. Yeah. What I love is that a jury knows if someone's being authentic. They know if someone's being genuine. And so if you are a genuine, authentic person, then they pick up on that. And so living your life with integrity and with values, no matter what, I think that also is just, you know, it has to be who you are. But as far as not sleeping, I don't think any good lawyer really sleeps well. Anyway.
So there's not like that one case that nags at you. I mean, I know when I was here last, you had what was the name? Hyde here.
Oh yeah, Heath Hyde.
Heath Hyde. There you go, Heath. Yeah,
criminal attorney.
Heath. I mean, and you know, he's done how many 14,000 cases that we can say he's done, and only a couple have been trials, and only a couple have kept him up at
300
night.
Trials, like 148 murder trials.
There you go. Yeah, and I was like, I heard the number 14,000
cases, or something like that. Yeah.
But yeah, he can only pinpoint like 1 or 2 that have kept him up at night. So I think he would say similar things where it's like you don't have the time to worry about XYZ. Like you're always thinking about how you can help your clients, and it seems like inspiration comes 24/7. You have to be ready to take it when it comes.
I think also like when you have your own firm, you're not just having a legal mind and thinking about like legal strategy, but you have the entrepreneurial cap on too.
Yeah, you're also a business owner. You're not just a lawyer.
You're running a business. You're thinking about HR. You're thinking about hiring and firing. You're thinking
marketing
about marketing. Yeah. You're thinking accounting. You know, just the business of running a business and growing. And I would say I'm more of a growth entrepreneur, not a lifestyle entrepreneur. Right. So that kind of pushes the boundaries of where we can expand, what we can do. Like, in fact, we just traveled to Missouri, and I was on the phone with a colleague and told him where I was headed. And he was like, oh, yeah, we just opened an office there, just in case tort reform gets a little tight in Texas, which it always, and there's, reciprocity.
SB 30 is the law,
yes, right? SB 30. Fortunately, most of it didn't pass. Right. It got choked out. But it's always being, pushed by major billionaire lobby,
Who pushes for that? Is that more like a Republican cause, a Democrat cause? It is kind of like everyone's happy. Like, who's behind that typically? Or what profile? Big business?
It's really not Republican. I think it's big business, and it is billionaire insurance companies who are just, squashing out and trying to minimize or basically eliminate their risk, right, and make more money.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's wild because, insurance rates have gone up recently, and they have been going up over the years. And so you can imagine they want to kind of protect themselves. But at the same time, insurance is something we all need. We all have to have, or at least we're told we have to have it. Mm-hmm. So, it's wild just seeing both sides of that argument. But yeah.
I mean, if you actually pull apart what they were going to try to push through, and if you yourself were injured, I mean, that is when it would hit home.
And I think that's what it is. You would
be so angry
because you would say, my kid was in a car accident, this happened to them.
Right.
I mean,
we're capped at $250,000, and he can't even,
he's in a wheelchair for life.
Yeah,
he's this and that. Yeah.
So a lot of people criticize the governor, for example, because, he had a personal injury case, he gained from that.
Yeah.
He's kind of,
it's become part of his identity too. I mean, it's what, a lot of people, that's the reason why people like him a lot. But.
Well, and, my dad was a doctor, and, in 2003 was, I believe, was tort reform, medical malpractice tort reform. And
so this has already gone through the medical side of things.
Medical side. So actually, it really deflated the practice of medical malpractice because, and now, like, I don't think the intent was realized until it played out. And so, for example, if you're older and a doctor messes up, but you weren't earning any income, let's say they kill you even, and you die, by a mistake that they made, your family, you're capped at $250,000 for non-economic damages, which is pain and suffering. Well, what are the other types of damages? Economic. That is loss of future earning.
Right.
Well, you're retired.
How do you
so you don't have any.
You don't have any.
You don't have any. So the only thing you have is the $250,000. So that's why age matters now when you assess the value of a medical malpractice case, which is almost age discrimination. So we're going to take, we'll pursue the person that was wrong who is young, but I'm sorry, you're too old. We can't help you. That's kind of the effect that happened.
That's wild.
That's just one example.
And it's foresight that they probably didn't have then that we're seeing 20 years later.
Right.
Where we can't do this to all aspects of insurance and law and all that.
Yeah.
Wow.
But going back to being a growth entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Missouri has reciprocity. So now I'm looking at like potentially getting licensed there.
Yeah.
I got licensed in Oklahoma this year. So
that's right, yeah.
My cousin's a personal injury attorney and he's has his own practice. He's a trial lawyer.
Oh, cool.
And so we're going to team up hopefully in Oklahoma.
Awesome. Yeah.
I'm really excited.
That's awesome. So what's something outside of law that would surprise people that know you more professionally, that you're a personal injury lawyer, you have a law firm in Dallas, Sulphur Springs, Oklahoma now, different places. What's something that you do outside of law? I know I have a couple things pulled up that I've read about you and that you've shared with me, but
okay,
I want
let's
to kind of see. Okay,
what do you have?
Well, I got like you wanted to host SNL at some point in your life, right?
So like I grew up doing impersonations.
Cool.
So I first would impersonate like family members.
Yeah.
And then it just became a thing. And then I was obsessed with Saturday Night Live, like the originals.
Yeah.
David Spade was like
cool. Early mid 90s. That was
yes,
the
early
best.
mid 90s.
The absolute Chris Farley, Adam Sandler.
Oh
Chris
yeah,
Mack, all those
like
people.
Hello, my name is Simon. And then Coffee Talk. I loved Coffee Talk. That was great.
Yeah.
She's like, what?
I like when they all dress up as girls working at the Gap girls.
Oh, the Gap girls.
That was awesome.
That was great.
Yeah. So many good ones.
No, I love humor. I love a sense of humor. I love funny people. I love being around funny people. And so I'd say, that's one maybe fun fact.
Nice.
What else do you have?
I got the Turkey cruise. You got abandoned in Turkey. Is that the story?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
How'd you hear about that?
You said it to me yesterday when we were prepping this.
No.
It's all on Google.
So when I was 14, I took a cruise and it was actually on the actual Love Boat. You remember that show, The Love Boat?
Yeah.
So the cruise
I don't remember watching it, but I remember
it was a Mediterranean cruise and it was on the actual Love Boat. And we docked in Turkey, and I didn't realize they had changed the time of departure. So we went to I guess it's the second largest market in the world. And I'm like, buying some tag watch, drinking hot tea. And when I walked back out into the market, everybody was gone. All the tourists were gone. It was like totally busy. And then all of a sudden, I was the only blonde hair, blue eyed girl there, which at 14 is a little scary in Turkey.
Yeah.
They have those eyes everywhere. I'm like, oh no. So I eventually meandered back to what I thought was my ship, and it just looked like my ship.
Yeah.
And there was a guy taking cards, and I handed him the cruise card, and he was like laughing, and he's like, "Oh, this is not your ship." And I was like, "What?" He goes, "Your ship out there." And I look out there, and it was
in the ocean.
It was
in the Mediterranean,
leaving harbor, right? Man. It was like gone. So then I was like, "Oh my god, no cell phones then, right?" Yeah. So fortunately, GPS was alive and well, and so they were able to contact that ship because it was a sister ship. And then I went on a little pilot boat with a bunch of Turkish men.
A little rescue boat?
Yeah, because at first they were like, okay, do we ship her home? Like, do we? But because I was so young, I was 14, I definitely didn't want to miss like the next stop, which was Zakynthos, which was the nude beach, So I'm like, oh man, I don't want to miss the nude beach. So anyway, with my persuasion skills, I was like, please take me to the boat. No, they put me on a little pilot boat. And honestly, I thought, you know what? They messed up. They didn't announce, on the loudspeaker. They just like put some piece of paper under the door. Like, I'm 14 and I was traveling with my grandmother, which is a whole nother story, So, and so I thought, I bet that there's like a side door and I'll just pull up to the side of the ship. No one will even know, that this happened. Yeah. And I'll just like step inside, and then I'm good. Not to mention, I had met a boy on the ship that I was like really infatuated with. So I was like, he can't find out about this. Well, I wanted to get back to him, but I was like, I hope he doesn't know it's me. I hope he, no one will know. But as we got closer to the ship, I was like, what is that all over the ship? It looked like ants. It was people.
Were they staring at you?
And everybody was on every deck, every window, like the curtains were open with hands like prying open, like, who is it, And then I was like, what is happening? No one on my little, pilot boat could speak English. Yeah. They were just like, going through motions. And then as we got closer, all I know is a swing just came thrown all the way down to and then they just put me in the swing, strapped me up, and then they wheeled me up the side.
Wow.
And everyone started clapping.
Oh my gosh.
They started clapping, and I was like, I don't know what to do. So I just waved. And smiled and was like, here I am. Yep. And then fortunately, that boy that I was so infatuated with was napping. So he didn't catch it.
He slept through it.
But he did find out because after that.
Were you like the most famous person on the cruise ship?
Everyone was like, giving me hugs.
Autographs, pictures.
I did get to meet the pilot. What I found out later is like they had to actually turn the ship around and meet the boat halfway.
Oh,
and that actually costs so much money in fuel. Like, it was a fortune, but
Yeah, it was just like a couple extra gallons of gas to drive 30, 40 miles.
Yeah, I mean, we never got the invoice for that, but all is well. Yeah, so that was quite an adventure.
Mm-hmm. That was a roller coaster of a story there for sure.
Yeah, so that was probably like, one time where it came close.
Now I want to kind of take this a little more not as happy, I guess, just to wrap this up, more inspirational. I think that's where I want to take this to end. And you've built a great practice. I mean, you got really awesome things going for you. You're going hard on marketing. There's so much awesome stuff, but you still deal with people typically when they're at their worst. They've had an accident. They've had something really bad happen to them. You don't meet someone and they're like excited to meet you. You usually meet them and it's like something really bad has happened, right? So if someone's going through that kind of thing right now, with an injury, they're overwhelmed with, something that happened to them. They don't know who to look for, where to turn. What do you want them to hear from you directly when, they reach out to you? Like, what is that feeling that you want people to have when they do reach out to you with their problem?
What I want them to hear is that they have access to me personally, and that I am able and willing to know them on a personal level, because I want to know their story. Their story matters. Do they have kids? Do they have a job? What has changed because of this negligence, of this incident? What happened that disrupted their life? I want to know all of the details that they want to vent, and they can call and they can vent to me anytime, because those details actually matter. They matter to me. They matter to their case. It's also an opportunity for us to develop a relationship, just to know each other. And then I also want them to know that we care, that they know about everything about their case. A lot of attorneys, I won't say names, but they will hide the ball from the client. They won't tell them everything because they don't want them to know everything. I'm the opposite. This is their case. I will school them on the law as much as they're willing to hear. I want them to know everything that we know and more about their case. I want them totally engaged. And I want to find out, what is your goal at the end of this? I'll tell you my goal, and I will meet you where you are. Usually we have the same goal, but if I have to meet them, whatever their goal is, I will, but my goal is to win, and to win as much as the case allows, so to speak. And I'd say, so really it's an education piece to let them know, like, this is what it's going to take. This is what your case value is, potential value, and this is what it is going to take to get there. I can't guarantee we'll get that value, but I just at least educate them on, here's your floor plan, so to speak. I can't change the facts of the case. So it's kind of like when they come in our office, it's like the foundation for a house has already been poured. Okay.
Right.
So, and
you can't change that. There's nothing you can do about that.
You can't change that. I can't change how the wreck happened. I can't change who the wreck happened with. And I can't change how much insurance that other person or company has. Okay. That's the foundation. So if you're talking about Amazon and they're at fault and it's a massive wreck, you have a large foundation. Right. Okay. We're building a warehouse, so to speak. Right. But if you have, a personal policy and it's another driver, that footprint's going to be smaller.
Right.
But then after that, we help them understand, what injury actually is. And a lot of people are like, well, they have this like connotation of, if I'm not in a neck brace or I'm not on a cane or I'm not, bedridden, I'm not injured. So I probably don't have a case. That could not be further from the truth. And a lot of and we're all tough. Like, we're from Texas. Like, most people I would say are pretty tough. Like, a lot of people are survivors out there. And I'm not saying like become a victim. It's the opposite. You don't become a victim, but it's important for you to know what has changed in your body after this impact. And if you don't, I'll take a minute to give you an example.
Yeah.
Okay. So, we have a client or actually, I'll tell you a different story. There was someone in our office, in fact, who was rear-ended when she was 18, and she got her car fixed and was like, I'm not hurt, I'm fine. And then time passed, and eventually she had like a tingling in her arm.
How much time passed?
It was about a year.
Oh, wow.
And every time she turned her head, she had like a sensation down her arm. She went to her primary care doctor. He ordered an MRI. And, when she went back, he was like, were you in a car accident? She was like, yeah, but I wasn't hurt. He was like, well, you have a herniated disc and it's hitting a nerve now.
Wow.
Why did it take that long? Well, if, I kind of use the toothpaste example. If you have a tube of toothpaste, in your dock kit, so to speak, if the lid's on, it's not going anywhere. But if you lose the lid and it hits other things in the bag as you move it around, you open up your dock kit, you're going to see some toothpaste everywhere. It's not going to gush out like shampoo, right? And that's what a herniated disc is. It's basically, you have discs that are kind of like donuts, almost like jelly donuts. Yeah. They're filled with that toothpaste substance. When you have a herniated disc, it's like the top of the toothpaste has come off and some of it has seeped outside the disc.
Yeah.
You don't feel that necessarily until it reaches all the way to hit a nerve point. You have all these nerves in your spinal canal. Anatomy is different. Some people have a very wide spinal canal, so it can take. In this case, it took her a year for that substance to get all the way to a nerve to where when she would turn, it would hit that nerve and she would have a sensation.
It took a year to travel to get to that point.
Point. And then it wasn't like, oh, I can't move. It was just, if I make this maneuver, and it wasn't like a stabbing pain, it was a sensation.
Wow.
So it doesn't have to be a stabbing pain. It can be a sensation. And that actually can indicate a very serious injury, which many times can only be corrected by surgery.
So a year later, she finds this. What happened? Like, does she have a case? Does she not have a case?
No, the gap's too large.
Right.
So it's too hard to connect it to the wreck. This is just what her doctor told her.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a case I handled. It wouldn't be one that I couldn't pick up.
Right.
It was too late. But so I think everybody after a incident, whether it's a wreck, a slip and fall, if it's not your fault and somebody did something or didn't do something that they were supposed to do, you have the right to know. So why not get an MRI to find out what happened? Because, I tell, especially with young people, I'm like, look, you have an injury and it might not be bad now, but it's not going to feel, your body's not going to feel the way it's supposed to feel in 10 years. So if you're 32, you're going to be 42, shaking yourself at 32 saying, why didn't you do something about this? And, I have like a soccer injury. I was a teenager. And so it's in my knee and it healed. I went back on the soccer field, played many seasons after that. But now that I'm the age I'm at now, when I wake up in the morning, that is the knee that catches.
Yeah.
When I'm in heels or if I sit too long, that's the knee that feels tight. That is from an injury all the way when I was a teenager.
Wow.
Okay. The difference is I signed up for soccer.
Right.
I signed up for that.
Yep.
These are injuries that you didn't sign up for. It was thrust into your life unnaturally by no fault of your own, and it wasn't an accident, it was because somebody did something negligent. And so that's why I think a lot of people don't realize that they probably are more injured and it was caused by the incident. You really won't know without an MRI image. And some attorneys, I will say, this is where you have attorneys, I guess it's in every field. I mean, you have doctors, who have integrity and, I guess some that don't,
Yep.
But I think personal injury especially, I think the MRI really tells the story. When you have a lawyer say, don't get the MRI because it might show that they're not injured, that's where we get a bad connotation.
Yeah.
So the facts are the facts. Let the facts show what they show. And, even if an MRI doesn't show an injury, maybe the case isn't, a surgery case, but it still, has value to it. It's just, those are the facts. So, and I think Mark Lanier is probably like one of my, if I, looked up to any attorney, he's one of the top. He's probably one of the best attorneys, ever.
Wow.
Yeah. But he is not afraid of whatever the facts are. He just explains them. He just, he gets ahead of them.
Right.
And so I think, he's a Christian. He has values, integrity. That really is what the foundation of our practice should be. So I would say I like my clients to just be informed, be honest, and know, what it takes, and we'll get there.
Cool. Mm-hmm. That was a great wrap up to all this. Thank you.
Okay, great.
That was fantastic. Thanks.